Hello to the Chess Chicos and the Chess Chicas. We are back with game number 2 of game analysis of my mysterious supporter, whose game was analyzed in the last video that we looked at in the Amateur's Mind series. And now we are back with game 2, where she is behind the white pieces. And today's discussion is going to cover a lot of opening concepts. I might dedicate a separate video to the topic altogether, but I would like you to observe the fact that this game was fundamentally revolving around many poor decisions in the very early phase of the game. And without further ado, I think best we can do is if we jump right into it. So we have got a Caro-Kann on the menu, and knight f3 is definitely a playable move, but definitely something that one shouldn't be playing on a regular basis. And the reason for that is because I'll take that back. If you play knight c3, then it doesn't matter which move order you play. But if you play the exchange Caro-Kann, then actually knight f3 is not a good move. So for the record, e4, c6, d4 take, and if we play the exchange Caro-Kann, the best move for white here, according to theory, is either bishop d3 or c3, where we are going to enter a reverse Carlsbad structure. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. And as you can see, white is doing here something really odd, which is that they develop the bishops before the knights. The reason why we love those chess principles is because every now and then we get to break them, and this is the textbook case where this kind of development is justified. The idea behind this is to delay knight f3 so this bishop cannot come to g4 and pin that knight, and thus the bishop doesn't have a good development square to go to, as the rest of them make no sense or are outright losing. So bishop g4 is still theory, but then we get to jump away from the bishop, not offering that trade, or at least not yet. And then knight d2, maybe h3, knight f3, and so on. And so if you play knight f3 first up, then d5 is going to, as in take d4, is not going to be the same story, because we have committed to knight f3, which allows an easier development for black. Okay, let's continue. Knight c6, and here we play bishop b5. Now this move, in my opinion, is definitely a slight inaccuracy, generally speaking, and I'm smiling because here we are breaking another chess principle, as in should be breaking one, because creating pins is what we like to do, except this pin is useless. Now, why is this pin useless, and how can you tell what pins are useful and what pins are useless? Two factors. One, is it easy to dispatch the pin? Yes. That's the first concerning sign that what we are doing is not good. Number two, actually there will be three things. Can I put more pressure on this pin? Technically yes, but that's it. And then the question 2.1 is that if I can, is it easy for the opponent to deal with it? Answer, yes. I play a potato, you attack me, I defend it, done dusted, easy peasy. Or I can just play bishop d7, done dusted, easy peasy. Yes, you can take, I take back, yes, the pin is still on, and no, you can't do anything about it. And once again, you will be kicked out next turn. And number three, is the pin, the fact that the knight is unable to move, is this going to hinder my opponent's plans, position, general ability to do what they want to do? No. Like, no, they didn't want to move the knight. No, they don't have to worry about the pin. No, they do not have plans that are revolving around the knight supporting, for example, e5 or whatever. So long story short, this pin is not it. The bishop belongs to d3. And for that reason, we either needed to go to d3 or to play pawn c3, once again building up the Carlsbad structure. Speaking of which, it's very important that we understand structures. I've got multiple videos on the topic. The Carlsbad structure is a structure that occurs in the Queen's Gambit declined. That looks like this. And we have a reverse in the current game. So here, this pawn formation versus white's this pawn formation is what defines the Carlsbad. And the respective plans go as follows. White usually wants, after development, I will just very quickly chuck pieces at the more or less the correct squares. White wants to play rook b1, b4, b5, the so-called minority attack. 3 pawns against 4, hence the name. And try to create a weakness, whereas black usually tries to jump pieces around the king side. In particular, checking a knight on e4, and then drum up some kind of kingside attack, knight g6, bishop f5, or bishop g4 even, and so on. Definitely playing on the king side. So when we have this, we have the reverse of that, right? So we'll put the bishop on d3, we'll put pawn c3, bishop f4 or g5, knight d2, and the general gist is that we are attacking on the king side. Many games, especially on club level, follow this marvelous attacking pattern. One reason why this opening setup is so popular on club level, because a lot of black players respond to it passively like this, is that you simply chuck a knight on e5, then you back it up with f4, and from here on out, by the way, we are completely playing a system opening, and all you do is basically carnage city, rook across, queen across, and mate attack on h7. That is what the structure demands, right? So when you learn an opening, you are not going to just memorize the moves that are best in the position, but more importantly, you will understand the underlying ideas behind it. Here, unfortunately, with white, we are playing an opening where after move 3, we don't know what's going on. Not only do we not know theory, but more importantly, we do not know, or at least that's the feedback I get from the moves that are being played by white, what we are supposed to do in the structure. So if I were white's coach, not only would I address the problem that we don't have adequate response to the Caro-Kann at all, but at the same time, I would ensure that we understand the basics of the so-called Carlsbad structure and the respective plans. Because when you do that, you are actually covering student for a multitude of openings. Not only the exchange Caro-Kann, but the Queen's Gambit declined, many lines in the Nimzo, some lines in the Ragozin, and so on. This is why structures are so important to know. So bishop b5 is misplaying the opening and is misplaying the structure. Not a biggie, but, little things add up. Bishop g4 played, okay move. We played here bishop e3. Another move that I would have a very big discussion with student, if she were one. Because this, first of all, is the ugliest bishop move on the board, right? Because it puts the bishop right in between 2 pawns. It's the most passive square I can put the bishop on. Well, in close contest, second place behind bishop d2, which is even worse, right? Now, what's the point of bishop e3? Well, it doesn't really have one, but the reason why it was played was because we are nervous, and I'm assuming here, about a future take and take, which means that we are addressing a problem that right now doesn't exist. You know that you are playing bad chess when you are defending against threats that are not on the board. And this is not to be mistaken or, oh, but I was prophylactic. No, you were not. You were misplacing pieces. That's what that is. This bishop belongs to f4. Is there any problem with bishop f4? No. Then put it there. Is there anything right about bishop e3? Not really. I mean, we're defending a pawn that was never hanging, so that's hardly a plus, right? Besides, and this is equally important, if we are worried about the pawn on d4, why wouldn't we play here c3, leaving the job of guarding a pawn to a less value piece, allowing our bishop to excel on much more active squares, and allow a fluid-looking development like so, where all of a sudden, barring the bishop on b5, all of our pieces are actually decently placed. Whereas now we continue putting our pieces all over the shop because we're terrified by this pin. Which, by the way, is a recurring theme if you consider the previous game where it also was a major player in decision making. Alright, e6 played. We castle, that's fine. Queen b6. And this is where another issue comes in. So, the bishop is hanging, right? The natural developing move to defend the bishop would be knight c3. However, the knight doesn't stand well on c3 at all, and we know this because it's in the path of the c pawn, so we cannot complete the pawn structure with c3, and we also cannot play for c4. We are completely stuck for a pawn break with white here. It's nothing majorly wrong, right? Like, it's not like I'm losing a piece or I'm losing the game or anything. But strategically speaking, this is not a desirable move, right? The same way how neither is bishop takes knight, because we don't want to give up the bishop. Now we are already paying the price in a way to incorrectly place the bishop on b5, because now it's getting harassed and we don't really have obvious responses. Except we actually do have one. Why don't we go c4? Which defends the bishop, challenges the opponent's center, and threatens to ultimately open up the position against the enemy king, which is still 3 moves away from kingside castle. And having just played c4, we can rest assured that it's unlikely that the king would go that way. So why are we not doing this? Because after dc, there are 2 ways to go about this. Both are wrong, but that's usually the explanation. So I didn't play c4 because after dc my bishop is still hanging, and if I take c4 then b2 is hanging. Now, that is almost certainly the rationale of the player who played the game, and would be the rationale of just about every player in that 1000 to 1500 rating range. Now, let's unpack what's wrong with it. Number 1, after dc, I never had the intention to take this back. We are not playing checkers, we are playing chess. And chess allows us to play good moves instead of capturing when it's on the board. And with knight c3, I have completed development. I managed to blast the position open. My opponent's kingside is completely stuck at home. And I'm threatening to win the game. Next would move with d5, which discovers the attack on the queen and attacks the knight at the same time. Note that this motive wasn't working here because queen b5, and we don't win a piece, we just lose a pawn instead. But after knight c3, this is now big time on, which means that black has to address the problem, which in turn will give me time to either continue piling up on my opponent pieces or simply retake the pawn and have a very healthy, great advantage. The d5 pawn break next is almost certainly going to land black in a borderline losing position. And if anyone is going to knock on my door with, but this is an isolated pawn, no one cares, because I am developed, you are not. We are going to definitely win the game. The dynamic features outweigh the static ones. And once again, by the way, an isolated problem is not a problem. It's a potential problem. I've got multiple videos on how people don't understand isolated pawn structures. Please watch them if you feel like you are one of those. Now, number 2, even if I go and mistakenly take this, I would pay money for my opponent to take this, because this goes against everything we know is right in chess and does everything that we know is wrong in chess. Multiple queen moves, pawn grabbing when not developed, the whole shebang. And I'm not even calculating this. After knight d2, I just conclude that I am fully developed. Rook b1, rook b7 is a game-winning threat. My opponent is still completely at home. d5 blasts the position open. And that's it. It doesn't need any justification. And often to this I hear the argument that, but for a beginner it's not obvious. True. However, every beginner has heard this a myriad of times, that they are not supposed to take pawns with queen when undeveloped. So the brain, the mindset should be, and most of the times it's not, by the way, that I have heard so many times that it's wrong, so surely I should allow, in fact, invite my opponent to do what's wrong. And what's very interesting is that beginners of that range, 1,000 to 1,500, would never ever take this with black, because they have this kind of instinct, associated with what they learned, that we are not supposed to hunt pawns. But when they are the ones who need to give up said pawn in the exact same position, at least 50% of them go like, ooh, I better not do that because I don't see how I win it back immediately. So there is a massive conflict there, that when we are about to take the pawn, it's bad, but it's when it's our pawn and they are about to take it, then it becomes good. Like, so 1 + 1 in one case is 2, and in another case it's 247. Chess doesn't work that way. It's either correct or wrong, and it's wrong. Anyway, moving on. So c4 should have been played. 100% should have been played. We took goodbye bishop pair, and now we are again busily defending a pawn that we should know already that this is not a threat. You should beg your opponent to take that. 2 good moves for white here, knight d2, which after the take allows us to already penetrate and obtain huge initiative on the 7th rank. Just to give you an idea about how powerful this rook is, after bishop d6 I already have rook takes f7, winning the house, because king f7, knight g5, king e7, queen takes g4, and with the subsequent queen e6, it's pretty much time to pack it in. And again, I know that below a certain level, this is never on the horizon of a player, but once again, this is how you learn this. That you regularly rub someone's nose into the fact that you should have left it hanging, and then you explain to them these ideas of dynamic pieces, superior development, loose piece. All of these add up to how you nurture someone's tactical growth. That they cannot possibly look at this and think that black is doing splendidly well here. Because it is the greatest backrank fest of all times, right? Alternatively, which I like even more by the way, I would have preferred here to play c4. Because we really need to challenge that center, put the knight on c3, and if they take on b2, then we go queen a4. Because they don't have the right to attack. I do, because I have developed pieces and I have a safe king. They have none of those. And after knight e7, again knight d2, and with the subsequent rook b1 and the discussed penetration, we are going to absolutely slaughter black here. Added threat is knight e5, by the way. That is one of the main reasons why I prefer this line, because here I can even jump around with the knight and kick the pesky bishop. So basically what you observe here is that between move 4, 5 and 10, every move we play is fundamentally flawed. Not so much in the evaluation of the engine. There are little tweaks there. It's not like -5 versus 0. But when I explain to you the rationale of what should be played instead of what was played, you can't help but notice that, yeah, this all makes sense. And so this is why learning openings is fundamentally a crucial thing to do on any level, by the way. But once again, this is how you do it. I'm not telling you to memorize bishop d3. I'm explaining to you what's good, what's not good, why and why not. Moving on. So yeah, bishop e3 bad, bishop takes c6 bad, b3 bad. Pretty much every single move ever since we started playing out of book was bad by white. Bishop d6, begging for c4, by the way. Once again, challenging the center, creating a threat. Knight d2. Once again, by the way, we are obsessing about the pin that it's hurting us, which it's not. c4 again, not played. Instead, we are obsessing with the pin. c4, challenging the center, threatening to win the game. And now I have got a decent square to go to with the queen, instead of clumsily treading on the squares of the rooks where they want to go. This looks like a chess position, right? This looks like we're trying to very clumsily resolve problems which are not even problems. Knight f5, knight e5, and this is a more or less a positional blunder, because here after the trades we end up with this very, very tragic double e pawns, and we don't have sufficient counterplay on the f file. Castles played. Queen, this is, by the way, ironically the part where we start playing good moves, good aggressive chess. So queen g3, great, c3 covering the pawn is fine, rook c1 fine, and then we start migrating pieces toward the king side, going like, well, there's no point in defending these guys and going back home. That's not chess. And shout out to our lovely player here who goes like, yep, no, I can't defend anymore. We need to find play on the other wing. Perfect. This is the right spirit to play in. c5, that's denying knight d4. And now probably knight h4. Yeah, going after the bishop is the best we can do. It's not good, by the way. I would like to clarify that, but it's the best we have. Bishop g6, tragic, absolutely tragic move. Both bishop e4 and bishop d3 would have made a ton more sense. Because the knight on h4 is stranded, and realistically speaking, there is no kingside attack going on here. We took, and absolutely unbelievably, they took back with the f-pawn. I mean, I tried to explain this to myself, and I just couldn't for the life of me figure out why would one take this back with the f. Actually, maybe they were worried about getting mated here. Yeah, okay, fair enough. That's a legitimate fear. So fg back, but now we have a target, ish. Queen g4, very good. Rook f5 and e4. Fabulous stuff. Absolutely fabulous stuff. Now we are eliminating our double pawns. And after the correct d, queen e4, the rook is hanging on a8, excuse me, which is going to ensure that we can further attack pawns and at least claim equality in this position. No problems. In fact, I would prefer to be white here any day of the week. But no. Our opponent plays rook e5, which just screams to be a really, really bad move. Because it's a loose rook and the f-file has been abandoned entirely. And so, irrespective of rating points, when this happens, you naturally start thinking to yourself, this rook, hello? Can I hurt it somehow? Let's try. Queen f4, mate. Now, call me harsh, but in my opinion, this is definitely sub 1200 level tactic. That we play queen f4, we attack the rook, and we threaten mate in 2, 3. Right? So, I'm trying to find excuses here as to why this wasn't found, but none to be had. Your tactical radar is not set up correctly if after rook e5 you don't pause for a second and your brain goes like, that looks sus. And as soon as you do that, you have increased your chances by 95% that you will find it. And it does look sus. It's an unguarded piece, it's an open file, it's a vulnerable king. All the huge red signs, red flags, red flashlights are going off that there is something here. Sadly, we played rook c2, finally defending a pawn that they really couldn't take, surrendering the e4 pawn, and now we are back to dead lost again. h6, check, there, and rook across. I don't know if we saw this move already or not, because we played it a move later. And yeah, I think we could have played it either or, but this way it looks now pretty handy because now we are threatening g6, e6 while the back rank is safely covered. So I quite like this. Queen c5 check, king h1, rook g4, and now again, excuse me, we are back in equal territory. Queen e6 would have been my favorite move, by the way, here, but h3 and then queen e6 is also fine. And the game here fizzled out into a draw, which was a very, very interesting outcome for a very eventful game. Now, in contrast to the previous game analysis, where most of the things that I reflected upon were middle game themes and end game themes, except for a few, here, 90% of the correction of the player, or call them student for the time being, should be on the opening principles, structures, understanding of what should go where, everything that really needed correction in this game, barring the one move tactic, was opening related. And this is my final reminder that when people tell you that beginners shouldn't worry about openings, that is a big, 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 big nonsense. That you should. Every single game starts with an opening. And that's where you learn the most important chess principles, centered development, the whole lot. And this game was a textbook case of that we missed so many opportunities and we missed so many better moves. But hopefully this is going to be now a marvelous learning opportunity for the player who played this with the white pieces, as well as you folks who watched it. And with that, I'm gonna call it a day, and I look forward to seeing you when I'm presenting game number 3, which is the last one on this batch. Thanks for watching. Please do not forget to sub, to comment, to smack the like button, super thank me if you can afford it, and I will see you in the next one.